What if I told you there was a hotel room where a man checked in under a fake name, said he had no luggage, covered the mirrors with towels, and days later was found tortured and murdered? But the door was locked from the inside. No sign of forced entry. No screams heard. No blood trail leading in or out. And his true identity, a mystery for over 70 years. What was he running from? Who was he really? Why did the man in room 1046 beg to keep his identity a secret, even as he lay dying in a pool of his own blood? This isn't a horror story. It happened, and it remains one of the most chilling unsolved murders in American history. Today, I take you inside room 1046. And once you enter, you may never feel safe in a hotel again. The terrifying timeline of room 1046. It all begins on January 2, 1935, in Kansas City, Missouri. I want you to imagine the hotel president. It's grand. Classy. The kind of place where businessmen stay during conferences, where socialites sip gin in the lounge. It was a different world. An age before CCTV. Before digital footprints. That day, a man walks into the lobby. He's tall, in his mid-20s. Broad shoulders, dark brown hair slicked back. Wears a black overcoat and a fedora. He checks in under the name Roland T. Owen. He asks for an interior room, no windows to the street. He brings no luggage. Not even a briefcase. Just a hairbrush, a comb, and toothpaste. He pays for one night. Something's off. The bellboy notices. Owen is calm, but he keeps looking over his shoulder. And when they reach the room, 1046, Owen pulls the blinds tight and turns off the lights. For most people, that's where the story ends. For Roland T. Owen, it was the beginning of something nightmarish. January 3, 1935. At 7 a.m., a hotel maid named Mary Soptic knocks to clean room 1046. Owen answers. The room is dark. Only one dim lamp is on. He's sitting in the corner. Fully dressed. Like he never went to bed. He tells her she can clean, but not to lock the door when she leaves, because a friend is coming soon. That friend never arrives. At 10:30 a.m., she returns with fresh towels. She hears a deep voice coming from inside the room. Who is it? The voice growls. Mary says she brought towels. There's silence. Then finally Owen speaks, calmly. We don't need any. But he was alone when she cleaned earlier that morning. And Mary swears that voice? It wasn't Roland's. January 4th, 1935, the day of the crime. Around 11 a.m., the switchboard operator notices room 1040 SIX's phone is off the hook. She sends a bellboy. He knocks. No response. He lets himself in. And what he sees? Roland T. Owen is lying on the bed. Naked. In the dark. He appears drunk, maybe passed out. The bellboy fixes the phone and leaves. But an hour later, the phone is off the hook again. Another bellboy is sent. He knocks. This time, Owen answers. His voice is low. Weak. He refuses help. But at 7 a.m. the next morning, the phone's still off the hook. And when the staff finally go in again, they find him. Roland T. Owen is sprawled on the floor, tangled in bedsheets. There's blood everywhere, on the walls, in the bathroom, even on the ceiling. He's been stabbed multiple times in the chest. A towel is wrapped around his bleeding head. There are bruises, signs of strangulation. But the door? Locked from the inside. No one could have gotten in. Or out. The windows are locked too. There's no weapon found in the room. It's a crime scene with no logic. When police ask who did this to him, he whispers just one thing. Nobody. The investigation, a maze of lies. The police don't believe him. They ask for his real name. He gives none. They ask who he was meeting. He says nothing. And within a few hours he's dead. But here's where it gets really strange. The name. Roland T. Owen. It doesn't exist. No records. No family. No friends. And the autopsy? It shows his injuries were sustained 6 to 7 hours before he was found. So he was lying there all night, bleeding, dying, in silence. But it gets weirder. At one point, hotel staff claimed to have seen Owen with a mysterious man, described as well-dressed, middle-aged, and with a cold stare. No one knew who he was. Other guests reported hearing violent shouting from the room around midnight, but no one called the police. Why? Because in those days, domestic disputes were often ignored, especially when the victim didn't ask for help. Police now believe this wasn't just a random attack. Owen had covered the room's mirror with towels. Why? Some say he didn't want to see himself. Others think he didn't want to be seen. The hotel staff also remembered another strange detail. Owen kept telling people he was going to meet someone named Don. No one ever found Don. And then came a bizarre twist. The man's true identity remained unknown for a year and a half until Ruby Ogletree, an Alabama woman who had seen a photo of a distinctive scar on his head in the news, identified him as her son Artemis. Police tracked it down. It was true. He was from Birmingham, Alabama. Only 17 years old. But why use a fake name? Why check in alone? Who was Don? And most importantly, why was he tortured and killed? The funeral that never was. Owen's body was eventually prepared for burial. Police planned a simple pauper's grave, since no family had claimed him. But just before the burial, the funeral home received a call from a mysterious man. He said he wanted to pay for the funeral. When asked why, the caller simply said, he was involved in a love triangle. He paid the price. Then, he hung up. Days later, flowers arrived for the grave. With a note. Love forever, Louise. To this day, no one knows who Louise was. Or who paid for the funeral. Or why anyone would go to such great lengths to keep Owen's death a secret, while still honoring it. Why did Owen beg to keep his identity secret, even as he lay dying? We now believe that Owen, real name Artemis Ogletree, was trying to escape something much larger. Some say it was the mob. A hit gone wrong. Others believe Don was his lover, and this was a crime of passion. But there's a more chilling theory, and it's the one that haunts me the most. Artemis was on the run from a secret. Not a person. Not an organization. But a pact. He had agreed to something dangerous. Maybe he witnessed a murder. Maybe he was blackmailing someone. Or maybe, just maybe, he was lured to that hotel room by someone he trusted. And once there, they made sure he couldn't talk again. When he said, "Nobody did this," he wasn't protecting them out of loyalty. He was doing what he was told. Because the people who killed him, they didn't just want him dead. They wanted him erased. No name. No family. No justice. Just a locked room, and silence. What we're left with. Room 1046 is gone now. Renovated. Painted. Sterile. But if you ever walk through the Hotel President in Kansas City, listen closely. Behind some doors you hear laughter, behind others silence. But room 1046? You don't hear anything. No cries for help. No last words. Just an empty echo of a man who tried to disappear. And almost succeeded. So next time you check into a hotel, take a look at the mirror. Turn on all the lights. And whatever you do, don't answer if someone knocks and says they're looking for Don. What if there was a place in America where people didn't just go missing? They vanished without a trace? No blood. No cries for help. Not even a footprint in the snow. Just gone. What if a woman disappeared on a well-known hiking trail, never to be seen again, even though hundreds had walked that same path before and after? What if a man vanished while sitting on a moving bus, surrounded by dozens of people? And what if one body, the only one ever found, reappeared 6 months later. In a spot that had already been searched dozens of times? Today, I'm taking you deep into the heart of one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries. The Bennington Triangle. Between 1945 and 1950, 5 people vanished inside a remote, shadowy region of Vermont. And not a single answer was ever found. What's really going on in those woods? Could a cursed mountain be swallowing people alive? Or is there something even stranger at play? Why was Frida Langer the only one who came back, and what secret might her silent return reveal? Stay with me. The Bennington Triangle isn't on any official map, but locals know it well. It's an area in southwestern Vermont, centered around Glastonbury Mountain, once home to a logging and mining town, now long abandoned. Dense forests, shadowy trails, crumbling ruins. A place that looks like it's frozen in time, and maybe even haunted by it. The Native American tribes of the region avoided this land. They whispered of cursed winds, rocks that moved by themselves, and a mountain that simply didn't want to be disturbed. Fast forward to the 20th century. Author Joseph A. Citro gave this region its eerie name, the Bennington Triangle, after discovering a string of unexplained disappearances that all happened within a small radius. And all within just 5 short years. Now I want to walk you through each case, one by one. Not just as stories, but as moments when reality itself seemed to unravel. Mid-Eye Rivers, November 12, 1945. Mid-Eye Rivers was no ordinary man. At 74 years old, he was a hunting guide who knew these woods better than anyone. The trails, the streams, every twist and turn, it was like his backyard. That cold November day, he led a group of hunters deep into an area called Hell Hollow, right in the heart of the forest. As they walked back, Mid-Eye moved ahead, just a few steps, maybe a minute, and then, he vanished. No sound. No struggle. Only a single rifle cartridge was found near a stream. The search was massive. Authorities scoured the area for weeks. But the man who knew every inch of those woods was never seen again. Paula Jean Weldon, December 1, 1946. Paula was only 18. A bright, independent college student from Bennington College. She set off alone on a hike along the famous Long Trail, wearing a vivid red coat that made her easy to spot. She was last seen by a group of hikers, confident, smiling, walking strong. But she never returned. The search that followed was huge. The FBI got involved. Bloodhounds. National Guard. Aircraft. They found nothing. No footprints. No torn fabric. No sign of Paula or her bright red coat. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. And that red coat? It would come up again. James Tedford, November 1, 1949. James Tedford was a veteran returning home on a bus to the Bennington Soldiers' Home after visiting relatives. He boarded the bus. Multiple passengers saw him on board. His belongings were on his seat. His ticket still in his pocket. But when the bus reached the final stop, James Tedford was gone. No one saw him get off. No stops along the way. It was as if the forest itself had reached out beyond its borders and taken him mid-transit. The Bennington Triangle wasn't just in the woods anymore. It was everywhere. Paul Jeffson, October 12, 1950. 8-year-old Paul was with his mother near a dump site in the Triangle. His mother left him in the truck for just a few minutes while she did chores. When she returned, he was gone. Paul, too, was wearing a red jacket, just like Paula Jean Weldon. Searchers combed the woods and trails. They shouted his name until their voices broke. Nothing. Some say the red jackets were a coincidence. Others whisper that red somehow attracts whatever lives in those woods. Frida Langer, October 28, 1950. Just 2 weeks after Paul's disappearance, experienced hiker Frida Langer went out hiking with her cousin. She slipped, soaking her clothes in a creek. She told her cousin she would run back to camp to change. She never made it back. 6 months later, her decomposed body was found, in an open field that had already been searched multiple times. No signs of trauma. No cause of death could be determined. Frida was the only one who ever came back. But instead of answers, she brought more questions. Why her? Why there? And why only after 6 months? The Bennington Triangle is wrapped in legends and mystery. So what really happened? Could it have been a serial killer? Possible, but unlikely. The victims ranged from 8 to 74 years old, men, women, children. Different locations. No pattern. No evidence of foul play. Could they have died by accident? Hypothermia? Falls? Again, possible. But then why were no bodies ever found? And how do you explain James disappearing from a moving bus? So then, the supernatural. Locals talk about a stone that swallows people whole. Hikers report whispers in the trees. Compasses spinning without reason, flashes of light. And a paralyzing silence that makes the forest feel alive, almost sentient. Some believe Glastonbury Mountain is a portal. A rift in space and time. People vanish because they're pulled into another dimension. Another reality. Maybe Frida was let go. Or maybe she was sent back for a reason. A message. Why was Frida Langer the only one who came back? And what secret might her silent return reveal? Of the 5 people who vanished in the Bennington Triangle, Frida was the only one whose body was found. But her return didn't solve the mystery, it deepened it. 6 months after she disappeared, Frida's remains were discovered in an open field. Not in some forgotten ravine. Not buried in snow. But in a clearing that had already been searched, multiple times. By trained eyes. By rescue teams. By people desperate for answers. And yet, suddenly, there she was. As if placed there. Her body was badly decomposed, too far gone for an exact cause of death to be determined. There were no signs of violence. No animal attack. No evidence she tried to escape. Just silence. Why would the forest, or whatever power resides in that cursed land, give her back? Some say it was mercy. Others believe it was a warning. Think about it, Frida wasn't alone. She didn't wander off like the others. She slipped. Got wet. Said she'd return to camp to change. She wasn't even supposed to be out there alone. But something, or someone, decided she would be. And then, it let her go. Or maybe not let her go. Maybe it returned her. Right where the world would find her. Like a message. As if to whisper. I choose who stays. I choose who disappears. And I decide when, and if, they're ever seen again. Frida's return wasn't a clue. It was control. A display of power. A reminder that the Bennington Triangle doesn't follow our rules. Time, space, life, death. In that place, they're just suggestions. Bendable. Erasable. Reversible, if something wants it that way. What's more chilling is that Frida never told us what happened. Because she couldn't. Her body spoke no truth. And so we're left with the echoes. The questions. The fear. Did she see something? Did she cross into another place? Or did she become a part of whatever haunts those woods? Maybe Frida was never meant to be found. Maybe she was sent back. So we'd keep asking. So we'd keep fearing. So we'd never forget. Because the Bennington Triangle isn't just a place. It's a force. It's patient. It's watching. And sometimes, it wants you to know it's still there. So next time you step into a quiet forest trail, don't listen for the sounds. Listen for the absence. Not for what's there, but for what's missing.
There are some disappearances that haunt you. Not because of what was found, but because of what was never explained. No broken glass. No forced entry. No cries for help. Not even a trail of footprints to follow. Just an abandoned truck. In the middle of the Oklahoma wilderness. With $32,000 in cash locked inside. Their dog, starving but alive. And a family that simply vanished. What happened that day in the Sans Bois Mountains? Did the Jameson family walk willingly into their own deaths? Were they being hunted? Were they escaping something, or did something much darker, something we still can't comprehend, take them? Why did Bobby, Sherilyn, and little Madison get out of that truck, and never return? My name is... Well, it doesn't matter. But today, I'm taking you deep inside one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries. It was supposed to be a fresh start. October 8, 2009. Bobby Jameson, his wife Sherilyn, and their 6-year-old daughter Madison packed into their white pickup truck. They were driving toward the Sans Bois Mountains of Latimer County, Oklahoma, a remote area thick with woods, where winding dirt roads fade into silence. The plan? They were scouting a 40-acre plot of land they were thinking of buying. They dreamed of starting over. Building a simple, self-sufficient life, far from the problems that had been weighing them down. But none of them would ever return home. A few days later, their truck was found, abandoned on a rugged dirt road, miles away from any real civilization. But what police found inside made the scene even more chilling, both Bobby and Sherilyn's wallets. Madison's little pink jacket. Mobile phones. A GPS navigation device. Sherilyn's purse. Bobby's briefcase, with $32,000 in cash sealed inside. And their dog, Maisie, emaciated, barely clinging to life, but somehow still alive. No signs of a struggle. No blood. No footprints leading away. It was as if the Jameson family simply vanished, swallowed whole by the mountains. Who were the Jamisons? To understand their disappearance, you have to understand the world they were trying to escape. Bobby Jameson, 44, had been permanently disabled after a car accident in 2003. His injuries left him unable to work. Sherilyn, 40, struggled with severe depression and bipolar disorder. According to friends, she had recently stopped taking her medication, something that deeply worried those around her. Money was tight. Tensions were high. Bobby had been locked in a bitter legal battle with his own father, Bob Dean Jameson, accusing him of threats, death plots, and even black magic. Sherilyn had her own troubles. According to some friends, she dabbled in witchcraft. She kept a witch's Bible, and had written bizarre notes about protecting herself from dark spirits that she believed followed Madison. Even more unsettling, police later reviewed their home surveillance footage from the day they left. For hours, Bobby and Sherilyn moved belongings in and out of the truck, over and over. They weren't speaking. They weren't coordinating. They simply moved, as if possessed. Silent. Robotic. Their faces, blank. Their movements, mechanical. What were they preparing for? Were they running from someone? Or something? Theories begin to emerge. The lack of evidence, or any clear motive, caused a storm of theories, each more chilling than the last. Could it have been foul play? After all, who carries $32,000 in cash on a simple land scouting trip? Some believed Bobby's father, the man he accused of threatening his family, may have orchestrated their deaths. But police found no evidence linking him to the crime. Others suspected drug involvement. Methamphetamine labs were common in rural Oklahoma, and $32,000 could easily have been drug money. But toxicology reports would later reveal no drugs in their system. And still, no signs of struggle. No murder weapon. No suspects. Another theory suggested a murder-suicide scenario. Sherilyn's mental health struggles, their financial pressures, their growing isolation from family and friends. Had the stress finally pushed them over the edge? But if they planned to end their lives, why bring the dog? Why bring so much cash? And why trek deep into the woods? And again, where were the bodies? This theory is where the case turns even darker. Some claim that Sherilyn had been involved with a local cult or spiritualist group. She once told a pastor she believed her house was haunted by a demonic spirit that physically attacked Madison. Bobby, too, was said to have believed in the supernatural. He reportedly told friends that two spirits followed him home from church, and Sherilyn carried a witch's Bible for protection. Were they escaping something not of this world? Perhaps the simplest theory, they wandered into the dense, unforgiving terrain, and got lost. The Sans Bois Mountains are thick, rugged, and remote. Temperatures drop quickly at night. Wildlife lurks everywhere. But this doesn't explain everything. Why leave the truck? Why leave behind essentials, phones, wallets, GPS? And how could 3 people disappear without leaving a single trace? The trail went cold. For 4 long years, the Jameson family remained missing. No answers. No closure. And then, something changed. It was November 2013. Just 3 miles from where their truck had been abandoned, a group of hunters stumbled upon a horrifying sight in the thick brush. Bones. Scattered remains, later confirmed to be Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison. After 4 years, their bodies had finally been found. But instead of answers, this discovery brought only more questions. Their remains were too decomposed to determine a cause of death. No signs of gunshot wounds. No signs of trauma. They had simply perished. How? Why? What had led them there? Why did the Jameson family step out of that truck in the first place? Some believe they were meeting someone, perhaps for a land deal or something darker. Others believe paranoia drove them out, that Sherilyn's visions of dark forces following Madison finally overwhelmed them. There's even a more chilling theory: they were lured. Not by cults. Not by criminals. But by their own minds. Mental illness can become its own form of haunting. Bobby's paranoia, Sherilyn's psychosis, and their mutual isolation may have pushed them into the woods, believing they were escaping something unseen. But the forest doesn't forgive those who get lost. Maybe they became disoriented, wandered further, and eventually succumbed to exposure, dehydration, or even hypothermia. 3 souls, swallowed by silence. The Jameson family disappearance is not just an unsolved mystery. It's a chilling reminder of how quickly life can unravel. Of how fragile reality can be when fear, mental illness, and isolation collide.